often one of the more confusing aspects of getting into the sport can be picking out the right fly for the right situation. The good news is that we can distill down fly selection to 6 core fly patterns, and we'll start with the nymphs. Fish eat lots of different things, and the good news is there's a fly pattern to represent all of them. This is a pheasant tail nymph. If you've ever picked up a rock off the bottom of a creek or river and seen little critters scurrying around, those are juvenile insects. This one happens to represent a young mayfly. The pheasant tail is dark in color. This one has a gold bead on the front of it to help it sink. And typically, we fish these subsurface underneath an indicator to get it down where the trout live.
Got him, got him, got him, got him.
The next fly pattern we'll talk about is the hare's ear. This is also a nymph. It represents a juvenile mayfly, just like the pheasant tail. The hare's ear just happens to be a lighter color than the pheasant tail. These are found down near the river bottom, and you can think of a river kind of like a conveyor belt for trout. The trout will sit motionless in the current, and the current will bring that food right to them. Typically, we'll fish the hare's ear just like a pheasant tail. It's got a little bead to help weight it. We'll fish it down near the bottom, underneath an indicator where the trout live. The next fly pattern I want to tell you about is the parachute Adams. This is a dry fly. It's tied to represent the adult life cycle of a mayfly. If the nymph lives down at the bottom underneath rocks, the adult mayfly rises to the surface and eventually flies away. If you've ever seen a trout break the surface of the water to feed, it's feeding on a dry fly. We'll use the floatant on our lanyard to treat our dry fly to help it float a little bit longer. The next fly pattern I want to tell you about is the elk hair caddis, and this continues on the theme of dry flies. It's designed to float on the surface of the water. If you've ever seen a tan-colored moth-like insect flying around a trout stream or a pond, it's probably a caddis. And just like the parachute Adams, we'll use the floatant on our lanyard to treat this dry fly to help it float longer. Dry flies come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and colors. If you ever need help picking out the right dry fly for the right situation, we have an associate at any of our retail locations that can help you pick out the right fly for the right situation. The next classification of fly I want to tell you about are streamers. And this one in particular is the woolly bugger. If I only had one fly to fish for the rest of my life, this would be it. It can represent everything from a leech to a crayfish to a small baitfish pattern, and can catch anything from trout to bass to even saltwater fish. It's a super versatile pattern, and every angler should have a few in their fly box. The final fly we'll talk about today is the Clouser minnow. And just like the woolly bugger, it's also a streamer. This is a fly we're going to cast out and retrieve back to ourselves, and is most often used to imitate a small bait fish. The cool thing about the Clouser minnow is that it's got little bead chain or dumbbell eyes tied on the top of the hook so that it actually rides hook point up in the water. This means that it's going to get snagged on the bottom less, but also give you more positive hookups. The cool thing about the Clouser minnow is that it can be used in saltwater or freshwater, can catch everything from trout, bass, to bonefish, and even tarpon. The Clouser minnow, just like the woolly bugger, is an incredibly versatile and important fly pattern for any angler's fly box. With these 6 key core fly patterns, you can catch fish anywhere, anytime.